The next war might not start with a bomb. It might start with a fishing boat. Right now, hundreds of ships circle one small island, and most of the world hasn't noticed. What if the war for Taiwan has already begun, just not the way anyone expected? Taiwan is a small island, just 100 miles off the coast of mainland China. It builds the most advanced computer chips on Earth, the kind inside your phone, your car, and almost every AI system running today, since the island produces approximately 60% of the world's advanced semiconductors and over 90% of the most advanced chips. China claims Taiwan as its own territory. Taiwan governs itself with its own elected leaders and military. This matters right now because the pressure isn't building slowly anymore. It's becoming routine, as major Chinese military exercises around Taiwan have shifted from rare events to an almost constant presence. No missiles have been fired, but something is clearly moving. For decades, an unspoken line ran down the middle of the Taiwan Strait. Both sides avoided crossing it. That line is gone now, as Beijing has effectively erased the median line that for decades served as a buffer, reducing the chance of an accidental clash at sea or in the air. Through 2025, the pattern shifted again. Reports describe Chinese Coast Guard activity becoming steadier across the year, rather than spiking only around political events, with Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense data showing 2025 had a more even, sustained tempo of operations compared to the sharper spikes recorded in 2024. By the end of 2025, the picture had escalated further. Taiwan's military reported that Chinese incursions into its air defense zone hit a new yearly record, with more than 3,700 such incursions in 2025, alongside record-high cyber attacks on the island. Then, in January 2026, something happened that had never happened before. According to multiple defense analyses, a Chinese military drone crossed into Taiwan's territorial airspace for the first time. It was a small, quiet moment, but a historic one. By spring 2026, the activity moved from the sky to the sea. Taiwan's national security officials reported a major surge in vessel movement following high-level diplomatic contact between Washington and Beijing, with Taiwan's National Security Council stating that China deployed over 100 vessels within the first island chain after the Trump-Xi summit. Let's slow down and look at only what's confirmed. Analysts describe a gray zone fleet, not warships, but fishing boats, sand dredgers, and Coast Guard ships that blur the line between civilian and military activity. This fleet includes China Coast Guard vessels, maritime militia fishing boats, sand dredgers, logistics ships, and commercial cargo vessels operating through unclear ownership structures, allowing China to maintain plausible deniability. According to multiple security analyses, China is rehearsing something specific: control over the waters and airspace around Taiwan, piece by piece. Throughout 2025, Beijing increasingly used the maritime domain to probe and pressure Taiwan below the threshold of open conflict, treating the waters around the island as a testing ground for coastal defense and escalation management. A clear example surfaced near a remote island outpost. In late May 2026, a Chinese Coast Guard vessel entered the restricted waters of Taiwan's Pratas or Dongsha Island, forcing Taiwan's Coast Guard administration to respond. One ship alone might look minor, but it was reportedly not an isolated case. According to the Global Taiwan Institute, 4 separate Chinese Coast Guard vessels entered Dongsha's restricted waters within 6 occasions within a single year. Not everyone agrees on what all this activity actually means. Some analysts argue this is mainly about deterrence and signaling, a way to remind Taiwan and its allies of China's strength without ever intending to invade. Others argue it's slower preparation for something larger down the line. Most military assessments do agree on one point: a full-scale invasion looks unlikely in the near term.
Most analysts assess a full-scale amphibious invasion as unlikely before 2027 to 2030 due to logistical and training gaps in China's military. There's also real uncertainty about intent behind individual incidents. Civilian-looking ships create a deliberate fog. When fishermen harass Taiwanese patrol boats or commercial vessels loiter near undersea cables, Beijing can claim these are accidents or private activity rather than coordinated state action. And there's disagreement about whether the pressure campaign is even working. One major analysis argues the strategy may be backfiring. It claims the Taiwanese public still broadly supports the current status quo rather than independence, meaning the very threat China cites to justify its pressure campaign may not actually exist in the way Beijing describes it. Behind the maps and ship counts, this is also a story about ordinary people living their daily lives. Fishermen near Taiwan's outer islands now share crowded waters with Coast Guard ships and patrol boats, turning routine work into something more tense. Families on small islands like Kinmen and Dongsha live closer to this pressure than almost anyone else, watching foreign vessels pass by their shores more often than they used to. For many people on the main island, the tension shows up quietly, in news alerts about airspace incursions, in conversations about whether to stockpile supplies, in a low hum of unease that doesn't go away. It's not panic, it's something more like persistent unease, the kind that comes from living next to a situation that never fully